All right, family. Tuesday today, September the 1st, 2020. We have a dynamite show today. We're going to be talking about savings, financial freedom, and generational wealth. I have a special guest for you guys tonight, Eric Watson. He's with TE Coaching Solutions. We'll be talking about that and more when we come back.
You are now tuned into Urban Voice Media.
All right, we're going to jump right into this one. We're going to be talking about savings, financial freedom, and generational wealth. This evening, I have Mr. Eric Watson with E3 Coaching Solutions. How you doing, Eric?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself, bro?
Doing great, doing great. You are out of Bowie, Maryland, man. How's things up there in Maryland?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everything is, I guess, as good as it can be, considering everybody's all locked down. But we're managing. We're managing. So everything's great up here.
I know my mom, she's up that way. I was speaking to her yesterday, and she said that you guys are getting a lot of rain, a lot of bad weather up that way. Everybody secured down?
Everybody's good. We had that storm that that hurricane. It came on up north, but it wasn't quite as bad as everyone had it down south. So we feel fortunate up here. So we're good.
Sounds great. Well, we're gonna be talking about savings, financial freedom.
Yes,
Everybody
sir.
wants to be free from something that's been holding them tight, and that generational wealth. I was doing a little research on you and everything. I noticed that you have your own company called TE3 Coaching Solutions. Did I say that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
So TE3 Coaching Solutions is LLC that I formed so that I could take on clients and coach them as a financial coach through whatever situation they may be encountering. So whether it be debt reduction, trying to save, trying to get to that point where they are ready for their retirement and those type things. I coach people at a strategic level on how to get through a lot of the hurdles that they may encounter on the way.
Eric, a lot of people, they think, if I go get me a savings account, and put money into the savings account, eventually that's going to build the bank for me to help me along the way of saving some type of equity to buy maybe some property, a home, or some land of some sort. Is there certain savings accounts people should look at and target?
If it's just savings in general, you probably want to shoot for a money market type account because those have a higher yield than your standard savings accounts, and they're still liquid. Now, there are differences in opinion with regard to whether you want something with a higher return, and that you would roll into investments at that point. But if you're strictly looking at savings, you want to look at something along the lines of a money market type account.
Is there a such way, like some people, they say, hey, I'm gonna get me a savings account, and I'm going to be strategic with making sure I put $50 in a week or $50 in every 2 weeks, and then something comes up to where they can't do it and they go back to dipping into the account. Is there some type of setup they can set to where they can't touch it unless there's a penalty of some sort?
Well, okay, so let me to back off that a little bit, to talk about how I actually teach folks that are my clients more of a systematic approach to getting to that point of saving. So first of all, I coach folks to save that $1,000 up front as an emergency savings. So that's something that you want to have liquid. You want to be able to touch it. You want to be able to access it when you absolutely need to. Not when you want to, but when you absolutely need to. So you have that $1,000 there, and then systematically pay off all your debt. And that's the one piece that, a lot of folks tend to overlook, but pay off all that debt and then get to a point where you have a larger emergency savings of 3 to 6 months of your monthly earnings. 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses, so that you have that cushion just in case something happens. So to directly answer your question, I don't think you would want to have money in savings per se that you can't touch I think if you want to put it in savings, you want to be able to get at it when you actually need to get at it, and you want to have that savings liquid. Now, if you want to talk about how you want to grow that money a little bit more, then you might want to be looking at investments later on down the line after you have that 3 to 6 months of savings in place.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Very. I'm sure there's a lot of people who really, really would appreciate that answer. Um, what's for people who want to start saving? They want to start a budget. Should they sit down and say, I have a budget. The budget I'm going to start is going to help me. It's not going. The budget won't take away from my household. It won't take away from my groceries. It won't take it from my little necessities that I want and everything. How should they sit down and start out a budget to where they can save?
That's a great question because first of all, a budget is the first step. That's the foundation to getting to where you want to be. When you want to get to that place of financial freedom, you have to have that budget. And I look at that budget as your basically your guidepost, and that's your starting point to guide you in a direction that you want to go in. But with that budget, when you sit down and you try to create a budget, you first of all you have to look at your historical spending. Where have you historically spent your money? As far as how much historically have you spent on your mortgage? Historically, how much have you spent on utilities, gas, car note, et cetera, and kind of create a line item for each one of those. And then after you've created that line item, all those line items, you can go through and scratch out the ones that you don't actually need. So if you're spending a whole lot of money at the pizza place on a regular basis, you don't necessarily need to keep that in as a line item. You can scratch that out and kind of increase your grocery money a little bit so you can kind of save a little bit. And I think that's the primary thing with regard to having that budget is living within your means and being able to stay locked into that budget.
Years ago, I had a what I call a credit repair business, and one thing I would guide people is my main thing was if I per se couldn't help remove a derogatory item off of your credit, I don't get paid because I did no work for you. It's almost like having a lawn care guy come over and just look at your grass without cutting it. You ain't gonna pay him if he don't cut it. So one of the things I would tell them and I would coach them and teach them is how to make the budget, because I didn't want them to come back to me. I wanted your credit to be nice so that you can go and make this house purchase, car purchase, but don't come back to me in 2, 3, 5 years with the same issue and problem. So as I step out of the savings and go more into the financial freedom portion of this conversation, people with poor credit or low credit scores, what programs would you advise that they should try to use to get them to the point where their credit scores is to the point where they don't have a high interest rate, which will put them back into the burden of a financial debt?
Okay, so this is where the mindset piece comes in place, right? Because I'll give the unpopular answer in that people who have low credit scores, unfortunately, most of the time they have a low credit score for a reason, right? So as far as going to a program to try to raise their credit score so they could incur more debt, I do not recommend that at all. All right. So my recommendation is if you would like to get your credit score down, systematically pay off your debt, pay everything on time, and make sure you make some extra payments where you can on some of that debt. And your over time, your credit score will go up. But what I'm not a big fan of is trying to raise someone's credit score, instantly. So they go for, as an example, from a 500 to a 700 or a 750, so they can go out and get a loan, which they're probably not prepared for at that time. So what I always recommend for my clients is they systematically pay off their debt, and that credit score will come up over time.
And I agree with you 100% on that, Eric, because what I found as I go back and I think about what you just said, I found they didn't learn their lesson.
Mhm.
They put themselves in that over a period of time, but by having credit repair companies to come and boost them, like mine was back in the early 2000s, we did nothing but really created a bigger animal than what they were.
Yeah. So
And
if you put yourself in a bad situation, and then you get to a point where you can, get another loan, you're just deepening that bad situation. You're making yourself worse off than you could have been by getting your mindset right. And you know what? Savings and financial freedom is all about a mindset, really. If you get your mind wrapped around it, then you can defer, and it's a lot about deferred gratitude, right? If you
right,
can defer all those things and you can hold off, you can get to that place. But we live in a microwave society right now. We all want it right now.
right,
So if we can get beyond that right now type mentality, we can get to that point. But you don't want to go out and try to boost your credit score to create more debt.
right,
It's counterproductive.
right. I understand you totally 100% on that one. Um, I kind of like when I was sitting down, I was thinking about you and thinking about the interview. I was thinking about what company should we advise people to go to. But as I read more and more about TG3, I said, well, hey, there's only one company they need to go to. They need to come to you. For people that are, I feel the people that really want to sit down and gather, because you said it in a nutshell, why go and add more debt on to what you've been doing
Hmm.
and don't get training on how to not do it again?
Right.
Because the headache you had last month, 6 months, a year ago, you're going to have it again in another year or so,
And it takes
especially if something
discipline.
catastrophic happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's one thing that I was really concerned about for people. One of the questions was, how do how do a person know what type of um, what type of mortgage or property loan to get, even though they feel right here and right now they can afford to pay $1,200 a month in mortgage or $2,800 a month in mortgage. What? How do they know specifically? Hey, 5 years from now, I know this was the best loan for me. How do they figure that out within the budget?
Now, the first thing I'll say when we talk about, getting a mortgage, everyone's not ready to buy. And I know it is, everyone wants to own their own home. I get it. I've been there, and I've rented on occasion before, but everyone's not ready. But when you are ready, what I would recommend is get yourself to a position where you can afford a 15-year fixed rate mortgage. All right. You want to stay away from a lot of those adjustable rate mortgages because the rates will fluctuate up and down, and you never, life is like a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get. So you want to stick with something that you know in a fixed rate mortgage, and you want to get it down to where you can afford a 15-year mortgage, because you don't want to be paying on your house for the rest of your life. I know I eventually want to get to the point where I have my house paid off, and I'm a few years away, but I want to get to that point because I feel like I'll sleep a whole lot better in a house that's paid off. But I definitely recommend a 15-year fixed rate mortgage. If that is what you can afford, then that is what you should target when you're looking for your first home.
Okay, for um, for people that how should I say this? For people whose credit is say 700 plus, and they have a little bit of capital in the bank, when would be the appropriate time for them to buy? Is it a certain month, seasonal time to buy that's better than other seasons?
I know houses typically move during the summers, but it's all dependent. It all depends on the cycles of the market at the time. whether it's a buyer's or a seller's market, and whether there's a large inventory or not. So that's all dependent on that particular situation as far as the timing goes.
Let me backtrack for a minute, Eric. Going back to savings and budgeting, how easy is it for someone, say 60 years, 55, 60 years old, who's never really budgeted their life? How easy is it for you to sit down with them and show them that, budgeting for something, I put it this way, say husband and wife never bought a home. They've been renting their whole life. They're only 55, 60 years old. They want to buy one. How easy is it for you to show them you can do this in XYZ time if you go by this budget savings plan?
I would say at someone at that age, it is a little more difficult to show them the numbers because a lot of people get set in their ways as they get a little bit older. But if we sit down and we work the numbers, and again, the foundation of all of this is a budget. And you sit down and you work out that budget, and you can see exactly where you have additional money to put towards a mortgage, or additional money that you can pull from unnecessary things as you look at that budget, and help them to visualize exactly where that money's coming from and how they would be able to do it. So it's a matter of just sitting down and crunching the numbers and looking at where they stand financially. And when I talk to folks, I say that household finance is all about two variables. It's income and expenses. All right. Once you have analyzed your income and you've crunched the numbers on that, you analyze your expenses. If you have additional revenue at the end of the month, then that is something that can be allocated to another budget line item, or to your mortgage if you can afford it at that point. So you can assess it by looking at that budget to see where they are. But to directly answer your question, for someone at that age, it's easy to show anybody how to work a budget, but it's a matter of them being more receptive to the information being presented.
Right. For a young person, say 21, 22 years old, when should they start thinking about buying homes, buying properties, or should they already start thinking about it?
Again, taking that systematic approach, depending on where they are financially. Like as an example, the biggest problem that a lot of young adults have right now, coming out of college at least, is student loans. Student loans is an absolute killer for young adults. I personally would recommend that once they get beyond their student loans, depending on how much they are. I mean, some people go to grad school for years and they're going to have student loans for a long time. But once they can fit that 15-year fixed rate mortgage in their budget and still be able to pay down on those student loans, I think that's an appropriate time to look at buying. But a lot of times we want to get things, before we're actually ready, because again, it's the American dream. Everyone wants to have a home, but we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and try to get in that home before it's reasonable. Because a lot of banks will give us loans, but that doesn't mean we can actually afford the house.
Right. When it comes to generational wealth, a lot of people, they never, get to be on the receptive end of having something transcend down from their grandfather, mother, and father. As I go into the generational wealth portion, what do you actually call generational wealth? What does that mean to you? What does generational wealth mean to you?
Generational wealth is my why, my reason for being in the things that I do. I have 4 kids. So generational wealth for me is being able to pass on a financial legacy to leave them in a better place than I was when I was their age. So I want to leave them debt free so they have a better start on life And hopefully it's debt free with a little bit of cream on top, or with some cash in their pocket. But I think the thing that holds so many people back is just debt, just having debt, inheriting debt, and those type things. So, and we're not taught and educated to stay away from debt. I mean, credit cards are presented to kids on college campuses. Credit cards are presented to kids at very young ages where they can't even afford to have credit. So, we're taught and educated that debt is okay. So we need to get away from that mindset and be able to leave the legacy, number one, that educational legacy, so they understand that debt is not okay, but also leave them that financial legacy so that they don't have mounds of debt to work with that they inherited from me. So that, they have a better financial start than I had, or than any of their ancestors had before them.
Um, I know. I just received a phone call several days ago where a family member, they were left. But let me take that back. Their family member who's passed had land and property, but they didn't have a will. So that wealth, how difficult will it be for them to now, him and his siblings, to get that wealth that their father had worked hard for, paid for, and all they got to do now is just keep the property taxes up on it. How can they now get that solely to them, to where it's not a big fight or a gamble within the courts when there wasn't a will made?
Well, there is going to be there is going to be a bit of a, I guess, a legal wrangle, so to speak, in order to get the land, just because when a will's not in place, things are distributed by the state. And so you have to deal directly with the state with regard to property that you probably should have inherited by way of a will. And you have to go through, the whole process of dealing with them. Vice. Bottom line, everybody needs to have a will, some type of will, estate plan, whatever the case may be. But if in a situation like that, they're going to have to deal with the legal aspect of the state. Now, they if there are no liens on the property and there's no other issues with regard to other debt that their father had, then it may not be that much of a problem, but it's still going to be a lot of hassle, unnecessary hassle, to
Right.
deal with that property.
Right. And that was one of the things I advised to them, that, from this point forward, get a will.
Yeah.
If you don't have any children, will it to your nieces and nephews. It's not meaning you're going to die tomorrow, and we're not hoping that you do, but it's smart to have it, because if you don't, I mean, the state can end up with it, and what you going to do?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
I have a question on the board. I'm going to place it up here for us. Let's see. Sonora Thompson Scott, as budgeting for retirement for a person over 50. How do you, what's a strategy she should use? I guess that's what she's asking.
Okay. Again, I would use the same systematic strategy that I coach everyone on. First, first and foremost, pay off all your debt. Okay. Now, and here's why I say that. A lot of people try to do too much, for lack of better terms. They try to pay down debt while they're trying to invest, while they're trying to build up their savings. And basically, they end up getting nothing accomplished because they're trying to get too much done at once. And that's why I always coach folks on the systematic approach, because as you pay down that debt, all right, as soon as that debt is paid down, you can do whatever you want with your money as far as investing it towards your future and towards your retirement. Now, and that's point number one. Point number two is, if you work somewhere that has some type of 401k, I would definitely make sure you're invested in that, especially if they give matching funds because that's free money. All right, so make sure you take advantage of any matching that they have with regard to a 401k. Also, if you're able to invest in an IRA, a Roth would be preferred over a standard. But if you can invest in a Roth IRA, whereby you pay the taxes on it now, but that you will it will grow tax free over time. You definitely want to invest in a Roth. And if you do not have access to a Roth, then a standard IRA will do. But first and foremost, the systematic approach: pay off that debt first.
Right. Right. I did some research and I noticed that it stated that a person's average lifespan past retirement is in between 15 to 20 years. They didn't say what demographic says to what genre of people. But my question on that one is this: is there a certain amount of money that a person should have saved up in that nest egg to where they can live sufficiently with or without Social Security benefits?
That's a hard number to assess without looking at, because everyone's monthly budget would differ, right? So some people have a higher mortgage or a lower mortgage, or some people have more people in the household. So it's kind of hard to determine what that number is, but you'd have to actually sit down and crunch the numbers and look at that over time. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I were to just give a ballpark number without sitting down and looking at the numbers to see where someone is with regard to their monthly budget and their expenses from month to month.
Let me ask you, Eric. Most of your would it be clients, customers,
Clients.
Most of the clients that come through TG3 Coaching Solutions, are they short-term clients or are they long-term clients to where they're keeping in contact with you throughout life, say 5-10 years from now, they're still coming back to you and getting coaching sessions on certain things? Do you have that type of client database?
I have both. Long-term and short-term, because as a financial coach, I'm also their accountability partner, right? Mm-hmm. So I work with them to keep them in line, and for married couples, obviously they're, husband and wife, they are their accountability partners. But, for other folks that need assistance as far as keeping them on the right path,
right?
I work with them and consistently work with them month after month. So most of my clients, we meet on a monthly basis and continue working together over time. Again, that our first coaching session is all around that budget. And I can't say that enough. The budget is the foundation. That is square one. But after we have that budget in place, we talk about the strategies to get to where they need to be. And again, that can last for months, for years, if they're maintaining on that path.
Okay. Well, I'll be moving back into the Charlotte, North Carolina area here soon. So most definitely, I'm gonna be giving you a call, looking you up, and seeing if you can help me throughout some areas. There was another question. I think we kind of touched it, but I think that maybe the viewer missed it. It says, "What is a good age to start a young child to save?"
There's no age at birth. I just say that. Start saving as early as possible. Now, obviously, the child is not going to have the income, right? So it's going to be the parent that has the income. So we're more dealing with the parent's situation than the child's situation, right? So again, the systematic approach for the parent: pay off that debt, get that emergency fund, and then start saving for that child's, whether it be college fund or future, and saving for retirement and those type things. But for the parent situation, make sure those first things are in place before you start looking at the child savings.
Here's a good question right here, Eric. It says, so they left a job and had funds in the company 401k plan. What should they do with that money now?
So with a 401k, you could always roll it over into a new 401k or a different vehicle. What you don't want to do is withdraw that 401k. You want to leave that as your retirement money because there are significant penalties when you withdraw that money. So if you are, if the company, and honestly, if the company's 401k is doing well, you can leave it there and you still have access to it as a retirement vehicle. However, if you want something that you have a little more control over, you can roll it into another 401k that you can work directly with that's not associated with your old job.
Okay, Eric, what about people who worked for a job now that we're going through the COVID and they got laid off and they decide to go a different route? Maybe they want to open their own business. So where would they look to put the 401k money if they didn't want to keep it in that company, in the old company?
You can roll it into IRA. I believe you can roll the. I need to check on that, but I think you can roll that into another IRA or a and I forgot the term for it, but it's not associated with the company, unassociated retirement plan without penalty.
So would they do that through their bank, or is there a certain company they should go through and do that with?
It would be through a broker, someone who works with mutual funds and retirement plans.
Okay. What was it? It was another question on the screen. I think I skipped over it. Let's see. For people, oh, that's what it was. For people who do have 401k, at what age would you say it would be appropriate for them to go ahead and pull it without having to pay penalties and interest?
59 and a half, I believe, is the current age to be able to withdraw without penalty.
Okay.
But again, it all depends on your financial situation. You may not want to start withdrawing at that point if you're still working. So you may want to continue to let it grow for to build that nest egg for later on when you do actually retire.
Let me ask you, Eric, if say going back to the leaving the money with the company that you're no longer with, if you leave the money at the 401k with the old company, can you still add to that 401k?
I do not think so. And that would be something to check with regard to the company. But typically, once you sever ties with a company that's associated with that 401k, they don't allow you to further invest in it. But again, I would check with that company to see if they would allow any further investments in there.
Awesome information. Awesome. Well, Eric, you're up in Bowie, Maryland. I have a lot of family members up there. If you want to give a shout out to your business and how people can reach you, the table's yours, brother.
Okay. Again, the name of the company is TE3 Coaching Solutions. I am a financial coach, and again, I'll work with you through any type of situation, scenario you may be working through, whether it be debt reduction, trying to save for your future, trying to make sure you have that nest egg for your retirement. So you can just check me out. I have my Facebook page is at TE3 Coaching. So if you just go to TE3 Coaching, I'll pop up and you'll be able to see how to go ahead and schedule a time with me. You can reach me directly by phone at 760-822-8768. And just give me a call and we can schedule a time for, and with COVID going on, I do everything via Zoom nowadays. But we could schedule a time for a coaching session, and we can go from there just to make sure that your financial future is set and make sure that you and your family can live the good life as we move forward.
Awesome. Before I let you go, Eric, I got one more question to give to you from a viewer. They says, can you purchase whole insurance policies for children in your family?
I believe you can purchase whole life policies. However, I'm not a fan of whole life just because insurance, whole life does two things. It's kind of like an insurance policy and an investment. I think you get more bang for your buck If you invest in a term policy, and once that, whatever additional money you have left over after, you invest in that term, then you can invest that money into some other type of investment, whether it be a mutual fund or whatever the case may be. Vice trying to have your insurance serve both roles, if that makes sense.
Would it be, what about those insurance policies where people get them in their, they're paid in full? What should they do in reference to, like, a lot of people, they get them, if they're paid in full, they take the money off of it. Is that a wise thing for them to do? To take
So when I get down to the fundamentals of insurance, I mean, insurance should be in place to replace some type of lost income. So if I were to pass away, my insurance should be enough to cover the income that I will no longer be producing for at least 5 or so years for my family, in addition to things like college funds, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's why I don't get too much into the other, insurance policies where, like you said, they're paid in full. So that's more of like an investment that's sitting there. But if you can withdraw that money without penalty and invest it somewhere else, I'm fairly certain you would get a higher return on your investment than with it sitting within that insurance policy.
Eric, I promise you on this one, this will be my last question. I know you have
Okay.
other engagements you got to attend to.
Not a problem.
But
I love
I want to go back to something you had said earlier in reference to student loans.
it.
For the young men and women who are in college and coming out of college with student debt, what's the best strategy for them in reference to overcoming that debt to where they can move on with their life in reference to buying properties and so on?
Pay down on the insurance, or excuse me, on the student loan as much as you can. Don't let it linger, because I've come across people who've had the mentality that this student debt is going to be with me forever, so I might as well just live with it. And that's the wrong mentality, because you'll never get to a place of financial freedom, being debt free, and being able to live the good life while you still have that debt lingering over your head. So my approach would be to pay down on it as much as you can over time. And what I use is called the snowball method with regard to paying on debt. And you would pay the lowest balance debt first. And after that one's paid off, then you pay the next lowest balance and the next lowest balance. And for most people, the student loan debt will be the highest balance. So just start chipping away at that and paying down on that as much as you can on a month-to-month basis. Pay 2 or 3 times as much as you can on that to get it paid off and get it out of your way, because you don't want that lingering forever. And another thing is, if there's some way for you to get that debt, if you can get it deferred in some way, get it deferred, but pay down on it while it's deferred. So you're paying on principal only, and you're chipping away at that principal while it's not accruing any interest. So, and that's what I did when I was, for those that don't know, I'm a retired Marine. And when I was a young Marine lieutenant, back in the day, when you were in the Marine Corps, they would defer your student loans for a certain amount of time. So while mine was deferred, I just paid it all off. So I never accrued any interest on my student loans, because I paid it all off while it was deferred. So if there's some way to defer that loan and pay on it, that would help as well, so you're not dealing with that compounding interest effect.
Sounds great. Eric Watson, I really enjoyed it. You can find them at TE3 Coaching Solutions. You heard it first here at the Roundtable session. Until next time, Eric, we'll stay in touch.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, brother.